AtkinsRéalis beat estimates on revenue and set a record high backlog in its fourth quarter. With demand accelerating across infrastructure and energy projects, investors are watching closely to see how the company advances its strategy in the months ahead. So for more, we are joined by Ian Edwards, President and CEO at AtkinsRéalis. It's good to have you join us. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back. Thank you.
Yeah, before we get into some of these results, I just want to ask, because as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, you do still have operations in the Middle East. So as we're watching everything unfold over there, have your operations been disrupted at all?
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously our concern is going for all the people of the Middle East, and particularly our own people, which are based in the Middle East. Our operations are not what they used to be. We were in the oil and gas space years ago. We divested that in 21. But we do have people in Saudi Arabia, and we do have people in the United Arab Emirates. Pretty much business as usual in Saudi Arabia, but all of our people in the Emirates are working from home. And we've obviously stopped travel and the like on the recommendations of our governments and governments around the world. So it's a tense time for our employees. I spoke to them earlier today, but business is pretty much progressing as usual.
Okay, so let's get to some of the results from this fourth quarter. I just wanted to ask that to start. But latest results showing strong momentum. What is driving most of this growth, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've got two halves, really, of our business, if you like. We have a general global engineering business, which operates in the infrastructure space, such as transport, water, non-nuclear power, and buildings and places. And we have a nuclear business, which is the proud deployer of the CANDU nuclear technology, which is one of only a few technologies currently readily available for nuclear power generation. And the way that we see our business now is that with these two areas of the business, they complement each other in a very, very differentiated way. And the capacity that we have globally in our 41,000 professional people around the world and our technology from nuclear really enables us to offer customers the power that they need to fuel the super cycle, if you like, in energy, particularly electrical energy. And I was listening to your previous speaker talk about AI and data centers and the need for those, but it's power which is really needed for those data centers to get powered up in the future that we see ahead of us. So those are really big drivers of the great 2025 that we had, which has set us up really well for 2026.
Yeah, and in your latest report, you talk about organic growth between 5 to 7%. How do you see that evolving? Is that kind of on the heels of what you were just mentioning?
Well, that's in the engineering services business. Nuclear, we would expect to overperform that by quite a long way. Last year, we had phenomenal growth in the nuclear sector of 50%, which was a very unusual year, taking us to new sort of record level revenues. But yeah, we're feeling good and confident about the engineering services range of 5 to 7. We're seeing good pipeline of opportunities. We had a very good Q4 showing kind of strength in the markets as we go forward. So yeah, all in all, pretty confident for 26.
And backlog has become a big part of the AtkinsRéalis story, right? So how much confidence does that give you in the rest of the year? And what are you doing to kind of relieve some of that?
Yeah, so we always see backlog as a forward-looking indicator because obviously that's the amount of work we have on hand, and it's a great indicator of the revenues you're going to see in the quarters to come. There is a bit of a cyclical nature to our business. It builds generally towards the end of the year rather than the beginning, but backlog at record high closing out 2025 is a really good place to be for 26. So again, you know, giving us confidence in the market and particularly our own special differentiation in that market.
You touched on this about nuclear energy, right? And how that's becoming kind of like the centralized conversation around energy security. What areas, I guess, are you looking to grow into when it comes to the nuclear energy space this year?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we have our own technology in the CANDO, and the CANDO is the indigenous Canadian technology developed over 7 decades, and it's a really special technology. It uses natural uranium. It produces medical isotopes. It's very, very reliable. It's very efficient. We've updated all of the designs to the latest safety and technologies available. And it's in demand. I mean, I've been around the world in 2025 selling the product, and there's a high degree of interest, as well as obviously domestically, where Canada has a very strong nuclear program and a very strong commitment in many of the provinces, and particularly Ontario. So that's a great thing. But we also support other technologies. We've decided not to develop our own SMR product. We support the SMR here in Ontario that's being built by GE Hitachi, and we also support other technologies around the world, such as Rolls-Royce and TerraPower and EDF, the French technology. So the two things together have given us this almost exponential growth in the last 18 months. And we're at these sort of new levels of revenues, but we see a really sustainable future in those revenues, and even building on that as we see new builds come through.
Mm-hmm. And just lastly, before we wrap up, any headwinds that you're looking at for the year ahead? I know you mentioned your earnings reporting call. There's some headwinds in the U.S. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, we saw some headwinds at the beginning of the year. I think we don't do a lot of work for the federal government, where most of our work is state to state. And we saw some sort of lack of confidence headwinds, I think, from some of the states as to whether they wanted to go into capital programs. Those got better through the year, and as I said, had a really good Q4. I think the other headwind that we experienced in 25 was some reprioritization in Saudi Arabia as they really focused in on Riyadh and the Expo and the World Cup. But again, we're through that. And as I said earlier, pretty confident in our outlook and the way we've pitched that range going into 2026 now. So, yeah.
Okay, we will leave it there. Ian Edwards, President and
Thank you.
CEO at AtkinsRéalis. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.